What's up guys, my name's Brandon and today Apple released iOS 18.1 Beta 5 to registered developers just 1 week after the release of Beta 4. And then along with this update, Apple also released Beta 5 for iPadOS 18.1 and macOS Sequoia 15.1 along with the second beta for watchOS 11.1, tvOS 18.1, and visionOS 2.1. But of course we're talking all about iOS and iPadOS in this video. So you can see here the size on my iPhone 16 Pro Max. First beta on the 16 Pro Max came in at just over 1 gigabyte from Beta 4. So a relatively large size here. Let's go ahead and check out the build number for this new update in our settings general about. The new build is 22B5054E. So an E at the end of the build number does indicate that we still have a few betas to go before the final release as expected. So if we go down to the modem firmware, you can see that has been updated to 1.11.00 on the 16 series. Okay, so now what's new here in iOS 18.1 Beta 5? And the first thing has to do with the control center. So if we go into our control center and tap on the plus in the top left and go to add a control, you'll notice that we have new controls under the connectivity section. So we now finally have Wi-Fi and VPN toggles. So before we did not have those. You had to access Wi-Fi and VPN through the main connectivity platter here, but now we have individual toggles for both Wi-Fi and VPN. And now when you add those, you can just haptic press on it and you can choose your Wi-Fi network, and same with VPN. You can connect to your VPN that way. And if you're not a fan of how your control center looks, now with Beta 5, you can reset it. So if you go into your settings, and we're going to go into our control center right here, and we have a new toggle for reset control center. So it's going to reset your control center layout to the factory defaults, which the default layout looks like this. So it's going to be very simple, and then you have your different pages right here. So if you want to reset it, you now have the ability to. And also related to the control center, we now have a new shortcuts action for showing and hiding the control center. So this is a brand new action where you can either hide, show, or toggle. So that can be great when paired with other actions in a shortcut. In the settings, if we go to the Apple Intelligence and Siri section, we now have a dark mode icon for the Apple Intelligence logo up at the top. And if we go into our display and brightness settings, the wallpapers for showing light and dark mode have finally been updated to show the iOS 18 wallpapers instead of the old wallpapers like we had on Beta 4. There's also a change to the camera control menu for the iPhone 16 series. So if you launch camera control and you double tap right here to go into the menu and you go down, you'll notice that we now have a selfie option. So when you go to choose between your different lenses, you can now switch that over to a selfie view, which is really nice. I think that's going to be one of the most popular options for some people who use this toggle. So really nice change there. And then here's a nice change in accessibility. So if you go into your settings and into accessibility, you'll notice that not only are the glyph icons to the left larger than they were in Beta 4, but also the menu items themselves have more padding above and beneath. So there's just more space in between each menu item, and the glyph icon is larger. So it's easier to see all of your accessibility settings here. There's a new splash screen for Apple Intelligence in Messages that tells you about the message summaries and smart replies. However, nothing has changed with Apple Intelligence in Messages in Beta 5, at least not that I've seen. In the Notes application, we now have a new icon in the toolbar for the writing tools. So now when you tap on that, it does nothing until you have something written. But once you write something and you tap on that, you can see it will pull up the writing tools menu, which is much more convenient than having to select something and then go to writing tools. It was a lot more cumbersome before. Now this update does bring a pretty big change to iPhone mirroring on macOS Sequoia. So if you have the latest Sequoia 15.1 Beta 5 and the latest 18.1 Beta 5, you can now drag and drop files between your Mac and your iPhone. And for those wondering about RCS, 18.1 Beta 5 does also expand RCS support to new carriers. So people ask me that every single video, and thankfully there are multiple carriers who have gotten on board with RCS support. So check your carrier again, check your settings again, because it might be enabled. And then we also have an improvement to the Type to Siri feature that was introduced in Beta 4. So when you launch Type to Siri and you start typing something out, it will automatically suggest different, actions that you may want to perform. So if I say, what is you can see it's starting to update based on what I'm typing in real time. So if I start saying, what's the weather? It can suggest that. So it's not doing a good job here, but it has improved a little bit. So what's the weather? Okay, so maybe it's just based on what I say. Since I say what's instead of what is, you could see how it kind of just updates there in real time based on what you're typing. And you could also open applications from here. Now, one of the biggest issues with the iPhone 16 series, specifically the 16 Pro Max, is touchscreen sensitivity. And unfortunately, those issues are still persisting for me on my 16 Pro Max, even in this latest beta update. I've just noticed that sometimes my touching on the screen just doesn't register. I have to press things twice, 3 times sometimes on my 16 Pro Max specifically. I haven't had the problem on any other iPhone 16. So that's unfortunately not been fixed in this update. I would expect that to be fixed in maybe an 18.0.1 update instead. And then taking a look at the release notes, you can see a few changes in here. So first off, they consider this a new feature for some reason, but for Apple Intelligence, it says when using Apple Intelligence, the new Siri UI might fail to render full screen on large CarPlay displays. There's a known issue with the camera control when it comes to installing an app with a capture extension, while another camera control app is already selected, might cause a system crash. So keep that in mind if you have a 16. However, we do have a couple of resolved issues as well. So we have some resolved issues on the lock screen for fixing when on the lock screen pulling down to invoke Spotlight does not work. So that didn't work before. That has been fixed. Also in Spotlight, the glyph icons will now match the icons on the home screen. And there are a few other resolved issues and some known issues as well. Like the mail issue is still there. When upgrading from 18.0 beta 5 to 18.1, it'll cause all mail to be re-downloaded. So just typical beta things, really. Now, as far as the performance goes, I did run a Geekbench test, the first ever Geekbench test here on my iPhone 16 Pro Max. So it shows my old Geekbench scores there from an old device, but here's my first one on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So we scored a 3480 on the single core and an 8550 on the multi-core. So not sure how that compares to previous versions because again, this is my first test, but I will keep that logged and let you know how these scores compare over time. Now, as far as the battery life goes, battery life for me so far, even on the beta for my 16 Pro Max, has been great. I mean, I really have no complaints whatsoever. So it's hard to say what battery life is going to do at this point in time, especially on the 16 series since it's so new. So can't really say on battery life. I'm expecting it to be about the same as it was on the previous beta, but who knows? You guys will have to let me know down in a comment below how battery life is for you. So please leave a comment because I'm curious. Now, as far as what to expect next from Apple, we should be seeing the 6th beta for iOS 18.1 as early as next week. So we could see it as early as September 30th or maybe October 1st. So it's hard to say exactly what Apple's schedule is right now with the iPhone 16 being thrown into the mix, but regardless of when the next beta comes, we should be seeing iOS 18.1 released to the public at some point in the second half of October. I would not expect it to release within the first 2 weeks of October. I think it's probably going to be the week of the 21st or the 28th, especially if we're going to receive an 18.0.1 update, which I would expect we could see that as early as this week or next week. So that's most likely going to fix issues for the iPhone 16 touch sensitivity issues. So it may not be released to everybody. We'll just have to wait and see on that. So just stay tuned to my X account and my Threads account. That's where I post updates as well. And for those wondering why I did not post an 18.1 beta 4 video last week, it's because 2 reasons. Number 1, there wasn't anything super significant in that update. And number 2, there was just a lot going on with the new iPhones, Apple Watch, AirPods, all that coming out. I just had a lot going on and I just couldn't squeeze in the time to make that video. So let me know in a comment if you want me to make a video on every single update regardless of the importance, or if I should just make videos only on the important ones that have multiple changes, like this update. Beta 5, for example, is a much bigger update than beta 4. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. All the iPhone 16 videos will continue and all the other new Apple products, I will have videos out on those very soon as well. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.